We're not just dealing with, we get so focused on thinking that we're just dealing with people doing people things that oftentimes we forget that there are agendas in high places, in spiritual places, that have a certain agenda that are influencing the hearts and minds of the masses. And so when we see people moved in a certain way or super focused on just one thing year after year after year after year, make me want to puke year after year, maybe that's because there's a demonic influence in the world that is causing that to be the expression of the lives of those people. The world is being influenced by spiritual forces of wickedness. We're talking about, when we talk about the demonic, and we sometimes think just, like a personal attack. We're talking about something a little bit more sinister here. We're talking about spiritual influences over regions, not just a person, but people. You have all felt this. You've gone into cities that as soon as you cross the boundary, it feels different there than it did on the other side of the boundary. You might not be able to explain it, but there's a change. You felt it when you walk into homes, certain house. All of a sudden, something about it feels off. Or gatherings. Maybe it's a gathering of people, a lot of people together. And you notice something is different. You've noticed a shift. You can't quite explain it, but the air feels different. You may have even felt sick. I've seen people feel sick. All of a sudden, get sick. Why are you sick? You weren't sick a second ago. Like, I just got to get out of here. You may have even felt temptations that you normally never struggle with. And all of a sudden, maybe you go to a certain city or a certain place and you're having different thoughts than you're used to. I promise that all of you have experienced this. It's impossible not to, because it's real. There are spiritual forces in high places that their agenda is to influence a group of people in a certain way. There are powers in place over regions. And there are power in place in homes. As we come into agreement with the wrong spirit. And that's how they get the power, right? It's through what? The yes. So whatever that influence wants, when we say yes to it, we're actually empowering it, giving it a right to stay. The goal is to influence a city into coming into this agreement with a certain kind of darkness. And the more people that agree, the harder it is to kick that sucker out of there. And most people that are influenced, this is the thing, right? We don't even really recognize it's happening until we open up the Word of God. And we say, wait a second. There's something more here than what I thought. And as people are influenced and they come into agreement with something, the lie, right? Because these spirits are liars, distorters. They want confusion. They want to move us away from God. And what ends up happening is as we come into agreement with the wrong spirit, eventually we get this new idea. And at first, it's coming from somewhere else. But if we engage, if we indulge, if we move into it, then all of a sudden the idea starts to feel like our own. And as the idea, the lie becomes our own lie, and just so you know, nobody believes a lie unless they think it's a truth, right? So while this is happening, couldn't imagine somebody knowing they were being deceived and still going along with it. So there's a lot of confusion and deceitfulness going there. But after a while, you start to believe the thought is your own. We make it our own, and then we fight for it. And oftentimes you'll see this, like, why are people fighting for something so hard that if you actually took the time just to have like a peaceful conversation about it, it would be easy to show them that's probably not the truth. But the reaction is, I must defend this thing. And people hold on to the darkness, this thing, this influence, and it becomes like a religion, something to worship. And at that point, it's incredibly hard to break. It's kind of part of the problem with the world we live in today, where everybody kind of breaks off into these certain categories of ideologies. You know, whether it's, we'll just use politics, you know, Democrat, Republican, whatever. And it's like, instead of just being an independent thinker, somebody who says, you know what, I actually have the ability to decide what parts of your argument I agree with and what I don't, we often take full sail whatever that group is that we're going to be a part of. And sometimes we end up fighting for things that we're like, yeah, that's just what we agree with. But it's like, but do you agree with it? Does that make sense to you? Well, that part I don't know, but it's the party I'm with. How many of you guys have ever found yourself fighting for something that you weren't even 100% sure about? I have. This stuff it's real. And it's out there. And it's happening. And when it comes to, you know, you might say, well, we just got to get rid of these demonic forces. Well, here's the thing. Kicking out a principality, a power like that, you have to break agreement first. People have to disagree with it. And this is why I believe that revival is so important, and why all of us should be praying for revival in our community and in the country, because you could look back at history and you could see times where God falls, His presence falls on a group of people, and they all give their life to Jesus at once. And all that work that the enemy had done to cultivate those agreements is broken in a single moment. How many of you guys want to see that happen?